Hello and welcome to Inside Modular, the podcast of commercial modular construction, brought to you by the Modular Building Institute. My name is John McMullen and I'm the Marketing Director here at MBI. Today I'm joined by Cliff Hokanson, Executive VP at HHI Corporation. Cliff is here today to talk about HHI and the medical triage units they've developed in response to COVID-19. Cliff, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing great. John, thanks for having me on this podcast. This is great.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I also wanted to extend a warm welcome. You are very new members of MBI.
That's correct. We are so excited to be members. The Modular Building Institute is just a great opportunity for us to expand what we've been doing for the last 50 years and just expand into doing modular building along with everything else we've been doing.
Well, welcome.
Thanks for welcoming us.
So let's dive in. Tell me about HHI. How did it start?
So 50 years ago, HHI started building cabins in Utah, up in the mountains in Utah. My mom and dad were the founders. They started the company and started building cabins. About 2 years after they started the company, they started doing federal contracting and industrial contracting, where we built a number of different projects for the Department of Defense, and a lot of stuff so a number of years we were building lots of different projects. And for the last 30 years, we've been doing a lot of chemical and biological testing facilities across the country. So we got, along with that, we also build a lot of buildings, hangars for airplanes and all kinds of support structures that would be required for anything that the Department of Defense would use, either Air Force or the Army and the Navy. So we've been doing a lot of work like that for these 50 years. And as we've been going about doing all this work, about 15 years ago, we started building modular airplane maintenance stands. So you kind of see the construction side over 50 years being developed. About 15 years ago, we started doing in-house construction or fabrication of aluminum and steel structures for maintaining planes like the C-17 and the C-130 and fighter jets like the F-16 and helicopters like the Apache or the Chinook and the UH-60 helicopters. So we do a lot of projects, and our projects have been very modular, and we'd ship them in containers. Our projects go around the world. We've been in Chile and Australia, in Africa, and a couple other places in Europe. So our products that we manufacture have gone across the world. So that's kind of how we got started. So, and today we do all that what I've been talking about. We don't build cabins anymore, but we do a little bit of everything else and build across the country at different Department of Defense sites, and we do commercial construction as well. Most of our stuff is very industrial, what we do, along with this manufacturing.
Well, that's really cool. It's quite a leap from the cabins that your parents started the company with to be really a global company, which I guess brings me to my next question. As a global company, particularly in the past few months with everything we've been dealing with COVID-19, tell me about the challenges that HHI has faced. What's changed?
I think for us and a lot of everybody else, we've had the problem of getting supplies. Our suppliers, we've had suppliers that have had COVID hit their supply houses or their fabrication plants, and they have shut down. And we have not been able to get some of the materials that we needed. And that's been a game changer for some places where only one manufacturer manufactured the materials we needed. And we just had to go back to our clients and said, hey, the only manufacturer this can't get it to us, so we can't finish the project, and we've had to reschedule. And that's been extremely difficult, but they've been understanding. For the most part, we've been really good, but the supply chain has definitely changed, and we've had to go to different markets across the country to get new supplies. And then as far as in-house, we used to do a lot of meetings in-house. We are very virtual. We've done a lot of virtual meetings because we work around the globe. We've been doing it for years. But where we had clients close by, we'd like to meet with them, and we've changed it to where we don't see them that often. Even our inspectors on critical sites, we've had to do some type of a Zoom meeting, a go-to meeting, or just a FaceTime where we should be able to show them what we've done and document what they wanted to see before we closed up something. And so the world's changing, and we've been very fortunate to be able to adapt quickly, and most of it we were already doing, so it was easy for us just to move forward in. But there's definitely some challenges. We have some new stringent policies here on our campus. We have about 85 people on our campus where we manufacture, and we make sure that they have, every day we do go through a COVID test, a screen, to make sure that they are clear and they're good to basically work here. So it's different. We didn't used to be able to do that. Now we kind of do it kind of at a necessity. So big changes.
So speaking more of COVID, what inspired HHI to create the Mobile Triage Unit? Was it entirely new? Was it based on previous work? How was it designed? Tell me more about that.
So that's a great, I guess the inspiration came a few months before we started. A little background. So we built a container called a containerized biocontainment system for the Department of State a number of years ago when Ebola broke out in Africa. So when that happened, basically the State Department was given some money, and with that money, they wanted to come up with a way to bring the doctors and nurses home that were going and treating patients for Ebola in Africa. So it was about 2016, 2015, about 5 years ago. And they contracted with a partner of ours to have us fabricate this container that would hold and contain Ebola patients, for patients and doctors and nurses, keep them all safe, and transport them on a C-17 or a C-5 or a 747E cargo plane and ship them home. So that background is kind of interesting. Why were we qualified for? Well, for the last 30 years, we've been working in the chemical and biological arena, and we're one of the best in the world at building containment for chemicals or biological problems, stuff like anthrax, ricin, Ebola, so the high-level biocontaminants. And so when you heard about COVID and said, well, it's really not that infectious of a disease compared to anthrax or at high level. So when we kind of heard about the COVID, we said, well, we could do something about it. But we found that that ship that was in Japanese harbor, the cruise ship, all those patients from the United States got shipped home on a 747E. The ones that weren't infected were in the seats that you saw in the pictures. But next to the picture was our box. It looks like a shipping container. It's not a shipping container. It's a very high-tech box with heavy loads for a cargo plane. And we had the patients inside of it, and they shipped them home. Well, we saw that on social media, and we were real excited, And sometimes you see something, we're like, hey, we built that box, but it had been like 4 years since we built it. And we were excited. We're like, hey, they used our box. They shipped the people home. And we built 2 originally about 5 years ago, and a couple years ago we built an additional 2 of these boxes. So we're not sure which of the units, which of the 4 we built, they shipped them home on. But when we saw it, we thought, that's cool. They're using our technology, our build. And it was kind of cool. The news media kind of did a little pressure. They came out and said, hey, now you've done this with the box, and you guys are the builders of this. What are you going to do next? And, John, when somebody asks you that question, what are you going to do next? It's like, well, I don't want somebody to ask me, what do we want? We went to people, we went to the Corps of Engineers, went to FEMA, went to everybody and said, hey, we're experts at taking care of infectious disease. What would you like us to do? And all of them said, put your name on the list, and we'll get back to you later. And I thought, that's crazy. I feel like as a citizen of this great country, we needed to do something more responsive and build something that would help people. So middle of March 24th, woke up in the morning, and inspiration comes, and the inspiration came and it said, we need to build some infectious disease box. And you know how to do it, Cliff, because it's pretty easy. We came up with a system and said, we want something that would go very remote to the remote hospitals, say in Wyoming or Illinois or somewhere that doesn't have a big hospital. And we wanted to have something that would service people and keep the doctors, nurses safe, and make it modular and mobile so we could go in and literally in a day or day and a half it'd be set up, ready to go. And if they didn't have the utilities, we would have the generator on board, some other things to make it work so they could operate it for at least a week's time before they'd have to refuel it or do something else. So that was our goal. We got together on, that was March 24th, keep saying that wrong. 9 weeks later, we'd finished our prototype and operational, brought doctors and nurses in, and they love it. And it's just, it was our response to COVID. Someone asked me, why did we do it? And, John, it really comes down to, I don't know how to sew. And I just told everybody, I don't know how to sew, but we know how to weld and we know how to build things. And because of that, we thought that's what our contribution would be.
That's really amazing. But for those who have not seen the unit, I'll just remind everyone quickly, there is a picture, a couple of them, in fact, on Modular.org. We have a crisis response page. You can get to it right from the homepage of Modular.org, so I encourage all the listeners there to go and check out the images that we have from a lot of members, including HHI. But tell me, Cliff, about the layout of the unit. How does it work for patients and healthcare providers? How do those inside the unit stay safe?
Perfect. So we also have a link on our website, hhicorp.com, that will show pictures of it. So if someone wants to visually see it, they could go there, and it shows it being installed. I'll walk you through it real simple. So there's 7 different modular units that are components that are 8 foot by 40 feet. They're basically shipping containers that there are ISO blocks on them. The back, there's 6 boxes and 1 skid, which is the floor. The 7th one that's in the back is this skid that has a generator, an air handler unit, and the utilities that need to be there to support the air handler and the generator, meaning the fuel tank and the propane tanks and a few other things. The next unit that's next to it would be the utility room, and the utility room has the electrical gear inside of it, network switch, a tank for water, a tank for sewage, pumps, and associated equipment that need to be there. The one right next to it would be the nurses station. This is where the people are going to be in. So the nurses are going to be in the air, and if you kind of took my picture, as you kind of walk forward, the utilities, or the skid, then the utility room, and then the nurses station. The air is being generated on the 7th unit, which is the skid, and the air is being just pulled in from outside. We're filtering it, and then we're going to condition it to either cold or hot, depending on what we need, and push it through into the nurses station. At the nurses station, we're going to distribute that air, that's comfortable air, that's clean, to the nurses so the nurses and doctors don't have to wear masks. From that nurses station, where they're going to have computers, and they have their own private bathroom, and there's sinks and stuff and whiteboards like you see at a typical nurses station at a hospital. From that, we're going to go, those are all long ways, and then on the 40-foot direction, there's 4 different pods, patient portals, that hook up to the end of that nurses station. Each one of those portals have we have a laminar flow of air that's going to move through to cascade or to push the air into where the patients are sick, and then we're going to filter out that air with HEPA filtration system that are going to allow us to take those fine particles, capture them, and so those biological contaminants aren't going to get out in the air. So that's the basic means of drawing the air through. In the patient portals, there's going to be a restroom for the patients, 3 patient beds in most of the portals. The one exception is on the one end, there's going to be 2 patient beds because the restroom's an ADA compliant bathroom for that need. So each patient portal is being given fresh or clean air, and it laminarly flows through some filtering systems through a series of doors and through filters. The nurses come through the doors, but the air goes through the filters. And it allows the nurses to go from the nurses station, walk into the first area, which is the donning and doffing area, meaning where they'll put on their protective equipment. Then they'll proceed through into where the patients are at and treat the patients. And when they're done, they would come back out doff off or basically take off the protective equipment, throw it in their biocontaminant container there, and go about their day. So this is a very useful tool that a lot of doctors and nurses across the country, they're excited about, because now what they can do is they can take a remote hospital that has maybe 12 to 20 beds, and they can add these extra 11-bed portal outside in their parking lot next to their emergency room or wherever else, and they can treat their patients there without causing harm or potential infectious disease to enter in the hospital. You can actually keep it outside, and the infectious disease, those patients can be treated there.
Well, it really is. I'm sorry.
No, keep going. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it really is an impressive facility. I wanted to ask you, in a more general sense, what goes into creating a modular building for healthcare? Are there special requirements or design considerations that you have to factor in?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So there are a lot of things that have to go into healthcare. So this one, we're trying to make an infectious disease. There's all kinds of, how do we monitor the patient? How do we talk to the patient? We don't want to go in there if there's an immediate need. How do we check on them? So there's some visual via camera that they be able to watch the patients, one camera per patient. They also have a nurse's call station, so the patients are in distress or they want a Coke or a drink of water, whatever it is, they can press the button and get the nurse's attention. So there's a few things. Basically, if you walked in the hospital and you saw all that gear with including oxygen and suction and how do you monitor people, all that same equipment has to go into this modular unit. So, and then just trying to keep it modular without being crammed, that was quite a challenge. But it was, so we have to follow all the rules of healthcare and then make it modular. And what we've designed it to be is something that would stand up to hurricane force winds. So it could be used in Georgia, or we've got one going to Florida right now. In those high wind situations for hurricanes, we've got it set up for that. So it adds another twist, because there's a lot more structure you have to do to accommodate those high winds that would be exposed in those hurricane areas. So I think I answered your question.
You did. Thank you. I've been doing some reading about the Mobile Triage Unit, and one was donated to a health system down in Miami. I know that they're being particularly hard hit right now. What's the reception been since that donation?
So they are extremely excited. The donation, they're putting a concrete foundation around, so it hasn't got there yet. So there's a little bit of they wanted to put it in the grassy area, and it was an area where we hadn't anticipated that somebody would want to put it in a grassy area. We thought they'd want to put it in a parking lot. So when we told them, wait, you need to put some concrete down before we put it there, and making sure we can tie it down with those huge wind forces, we have to have a good anchoring system. And so they're putting the concrete in place, and it'll be there pretty quick, because they were actually hoping that that big wave that's hitting Miami right now would hit later in the fall, and so it would be needed a little bit later. They need it right now, and so we're both anxiously awaiting them to get the concrete done so we can get it there. So we're excited about it, though.
Gotcha. So once that concrete's in place, how long do you think the installation will take?
Oh, okay. So this is really cool, John. And if your listeners are listening, they need to go to our website. We put this unit together in our parking lot, and we have it on video. And if you watch it on video, it's 3 minutes, but it really took longer than that. But it was 3 minutes. It's time lapse. It takes about 12 hours, so about a day or a day and a half to put together. So really fast. Once we get the concrete approved, it'll be first day we'll be unloading, and the second day we'll turn the switch and it'll be ready to be worked, be used. So super fast. And what we wanted to be a rapid response. So if an area is getting hit, let's say it's right now it's Miami, but if it was the eastern side of Washington State and they had some in the Yakima Valley and they needed a hospital there, they needed some extra space, it gets shipped there, and literally by the end of a long day, you could turn the lights on and they could start operating. when I say operating, they can start operating out of this unit.
That's impressive.
So pretty quick.
That's impressive. Have you deployed additional triage units? We've got the one headed to Miami. Are there others around the country yet?
So the answer is the word's still getting out, and we're under process of making them right now, and more will be going out to more units. We're hoping that the word gets out. Most people didn't know this is possible to do, and now that they're seeing it possible, there's a lot of hospitals that the remote hospitals are saying this would be great. We need it just to help take the pressure off of if someone walked in the hospital, we can have that. We can put them over here in this mobile triage, the infectious disease wing that's outside in the parking lot, now take the pressure off. And these larger hospitals, mid-sized hospitals, they're looking at it saying, right now with the heat, you can kind of keep people cool underneath the tent while they're waiting in line to try to figure out if their test works. But they're worried about the cold, and they're looking at this as being kind of a sorting operation where they could put people in, do the test, figure out how bad they are, if they're more advanced or less advanced, and then they could push them into or take them to the right wing or the left wing of the hospital or the fifth floor, wherever they got to take them to keep them. They kind of use it as a pre-sorter or a sorting area. And so when we're talking to the healthcare officials, they're getting excited about it because they're like, this is a great tool. One thing that I needed to clarify that the hospital in Miami is receiving it, but the group that received the free donation is the Global Surgical and Medical Support Group. Mm-hmm. They're a bunch of doctors and nurses across the country. Most of them were previously in the Department of Defense. They go to different countries and perform surgeries either for our military or just to help the military in areas across the world that have a need. And they were the actually recipient of the unit. They do a lot of training out of the hospital, the Jackson Memorial Hospital. They have a lot of their training that goes on there. So they've asked to have it stationed there where it could be jointly used for the hospital itself, and then also that group can train with it there at that hospital. So it's kind of a neat partnership between HHI donating and then the Global Surgical and Medical Support Group and the hospital there in Miami.
I see. Well, thanks for the clarification. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So I hope we can do everything we can to spread the word. This sounds like an amazing project. What other projects are you working on?
Great question. So along with this COVID response, we're starting to build laboratories for COVID testing labs that are very modular. You could very well imagine that a lot of the testing of COVID takes some space, and right now I could probably kind of tell you the best story is I had a guy that was setting up a lab inside of a hospital, so they kind of kicked out the custodian in one room, cleaned up the other room where the supply closet was, and started throwing the gear in around the room to try to, these machines that they need to do the testing. It's not that efficient, and then when you go to say, hey, here's the flow of the process for testing, and you don't know what room it's supposed to go into, and they need 2 or 3 rooms in some of the hospitals. Guys finally said, look, let's just put it in a mobile unit or a modular unit that we can take out and we can set outside, and then we can take care of our employees, but we can do the testing and not have to mess up with how we already have programmed the hospital. So we're starting to build some of those laboratories, and a lot of other things that are coming online. But that's the next one we're working on. We're actually building the first prototype right now for one of the companies that we're working with. So we're excited about that, and we're looking forward to many more things that we can build for others.
Well, that is exciting. That is exciting. Cliff, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to hearing more about HHI in the very near future. Thanks again.
Thanks, John. We appreciate you.
All right, my name is John McMullen. This has been another episode of Inside Modular, the podcast of commercial modular construction. Until next time.